Pitchdeck Asia. We're in the Asia Tech Podcast studio here in Singapore. It's Graham Brown, joined by Rayner Loi, co-founder and CEO of Good for Food. Rayner, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, man. Super excited for this.
It's great to have you here. And, the conversation of today is going to be about Good for Food and what you're doing. There is a huge problem with food waste.
Huge problem.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask you to come a little bit closer to the mic. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Good. So we had a bit of a rush going into the studio today, but now, Good for Food. You are, give me a little bit of the background on how you got to this space. You came from the world of banking.
Not really. I mean, I'm a university student,
Right.
majoring in finance, minor in entrepreneurship. And my story goes like this. So in university, at my uni, we all have to do a sort of service learning project.
Yeah.
We have to work with different organizations. And my passion is reaching out to youth at risk.
Right, okay.
So I partner with an organization where basically I go down to the center and I mentor and befriend youths who come from slightly more challenging backgrounds.
What would that mean?
So they come from families, single parent, or their parents that are serving jail time, or parents are juggling 4 to 5 jobs to put meals on the table.
Yeah.
So often these kids, they get in bad company because they don't have a lot of time with their parents and all. And so my main role was just to have a positive impact and influence on their lives. And there was this one youth that I was journeying with for a while, and there was one day I took him out for dinner. And after dinner, I sent him home, and at the door, I told his mother, I said, "Oh, auntie, you don't have to worry about your son's dinner anymore," because we just had dinner together. At that point, she started to tear up, and she started to thank me profusely. And I said, "Oh, it's okay, it's just one meal, I can afford it." She then told me how much that meant to her and her son, because on most nights, she can't afford to put dinner on the table. And I was shocked. As a 22-year-old, very ignorant, I did not realize that there were Singaporeans that were falling through the cracks of our social system. And I walked away from that experience feeling a great sense of injustice, because at the same time, I was very aware of Singapore's food waste situation.
So you were studying finance at the time, but you were really operating at the other end of the social spectrum. Why were you doing that? Why didn't you just sort of focus on getting good grades and going into the world of banking?
To be honest, growing up, I had people who came into my life to mentor me, and I just felt that value immediately. And I realized that not many people in Singapore can have that sort of same blessing and privilege. So I thought, hey, pay it forward. And that's really the least I could do, given the amount of good things that my mentors have done for me.
Exactly. How old are you now, Rayner?
25.
You're 25?
Yeah.
Okay. And you graduated when?
I have not graduated, actually.
You haven't graduated?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in final year.
You're in final year.
But I've been basically putting my studies on hold for the last year and a half to pursue Good for Food full time. And I'm so thankful that my school is super supportive.
All right. So let's understand that.
Yep.
It's an important part of your story. Obviously, being 25, for those outside Singapore, you're going to sort of go into the world of work a little bit later than most people. You've done NS and all that, right?
Yep.
So you're in the last year of your studies.
Exactly.
And you're doing, have you taken a sabbatical to do this, or is this part of your studies?
It's a sabbatical, basically.
Right. So you've taken a year out to do Good for Food?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Good for Food, but I want to be a fly on the wall of that conversation that you had with your professor or your dean or whoever it was when you said you were going to take a sabbatical. How did you do that? What did you say to them? And even to your family and so on, you can say, look, I know you sort of backed me to go to college, to study, and I'm going to take a bit of time out. How did that go?
Yeah, so first thing I have to say is that my school is super supportive of me. So I come from the Singapore University of Social Sciences. And something that they're really, really huge on is social enterprise, social entrepreneurship. They actually run courses these days on entrepreneurship and with a particular focus on helping, people think hard about, some of the social and environmental issues around us. So when I went to the provost, basically, I told him, I said that, if you're going to force me to take an internship in a bank, because we all have to do a 6 months compulsory internship,
Right.
I told him, I said, I will literally rot in a bank.
Why?
And I just don't enjoy it anymore, I suppose. I mean, at that point in time, I was doing Good for Food and, running my own company, working on what I'm passionate about. Finance just started to become a little bit dull, to say the least. So I told him, I said, hey, I had a proposition for him, right? I'm a hustler. So I proposed to him, I said, hey, can I do my internship at my own company? And, have that 6 months, we sort of counted, It took a while to convince him.
Before? Were you the first?
I am the first.
I like your style.
Yeah, so they told me no, I mean, like, you are a finance major. We want to equip you with like working experience in a bank so that, you know, when you graduate, you can get a job. I said, no, but I don't want to work in a bank. I want to run my own company. So it took a while to convince him, but I think at the end of the day, he was like, you know what? Okay, go for it. We support you.
If they're teaching entrepreneurship, there is entrepreneurship right there, isn't it? That somebody has the audacity to pitch something like that. And it wasn't like you were pitching it just because you wanted to take time off and just, you know, laze around. You actually believed in this.
Yeah. And so again, super thankful to my school.
Yeah.
After that, they actually came out with the entrepreneurship minor program.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I went to them again. I said, hey, you know, I've been running my business. You can't teach entrepreneurship in a classroom. Sure, you can a little bit, but it's all about the execution. It's all about grinding and hustling and getting your hands dirty.
Yeah.
And so I told them, I said, you know, if it's going to be something like a course, you're going to make me sit in a class for like 50 hours, I know way I'm going to be interested in that.
Did you actually say it in those words?
Probably a little bit, you know, more
diplomatic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, they took my sort of feedback, and today what they have is a completely different program.
Yeah.
So no classes at all. Workshops, they are not really compulsory, as and when you think that it adds value to you. It's really focused on execution. So you pass the course if you start a company and you raise money.
That's good. That's your diploma certificate right there, isn't it? So, all right, Rayner, let's talk about Good for Food. How long have you been running this?
Our 2-year anniversary will be in May.
Right. So just coming up to 20 months now.
Yep.
Well, less. Sorry, more. 22.
Yeah.
Time flies. So you started it whilst you were a student.
Yes.
And you started, I want to know all about how you started it, who you started it with, and how much money you started with.
Yeah. So I started it by myself initially. Just had the idea, you know, was looking on the internet, what sort of solutions are out there for food waste. And I saw a lot of solutions around recycling. So, you know, your food digester machines and all. I also looked and saw many solutions around, for example, redistribution. So mobile app, you know, restaurant is going to close, surplus food, sell it at a highly discounted rate and all. But what I realized was that there were no solutions, or almost no solutions, targeting food waste at the prevention level.
Yeah.
So I saw opportunity there.
Okay. We're going to go a bit deeper into the solution. That's fine. So I don't want you to repeat your content. So just give us the very top line. So you saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
You had an idea.
Yep.
You started it by yourself.
Yep.
How much money did you start with?
Almost no money, to be honest. I joined a accelerator program.
In the university?
Nope. Outside university. It's called Impact Tech. Yeah. I believe you guys will be interviewing Kinneret sometime
I know
soon.
Kinneret very well.
Yeah. So we're part of their first cohort.
Awesome. Good for you.
Yep. And I met my co-founder there.
Very good.
He also got in with his own idea, also on food waste.
Yeah.
And it's the idea I actually pivoted from. So before this idea, I was actually working on something slightly different, also food waste related. I tried to execute, didn't really work out. And I told him, I said, Keshav, my co-founder's name, I said, Keshav, here are my learnings. See if you can take it off. And he told me, he said, oh, Rayner, you're not the first person to tell me this maybe it wouldn't work. And I took the opportunity to poach him because he's an engineer. I am
poach him from
the
what?
BD guy, basically, from his own.
His own startup.
Yeah. So we decided to join forces. And it's been a 24-month journey.
Is he a student as well?
He is a student. He's currently actually serving the army.
Oh, okay.
He's 20 years old.
Okay. So when does he get out?
He gets out in a couple of months, in August.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the team reforms. And I mean, it's great that you met at Impact Tech. So you work with Yoav and Kinneret there.
Yep.
That's a great team as well. A lot of experience, which is good. So you did that. Let me understand. You took that accelerated course whilst you were at university.
Absolutely.
So where did you find the time to do that?
The sessions were mostly in the evenings. So I still could find time, you know, like outside of class.
Absolutely. There you go.
Yeah.
It's right there. So anybody that complains that they don't have time to do this.
Yeah, hey, I always believe in the 7 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So do your normal day job or your school from like 9 to 6. And then it's all about what you're doing from the 7 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Right.
So
that's the real education.
Yeah.
7 till 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go into the pitch deck in a minute and have a look. So you're going to talk about the problem and the solution. Like you've mentioned how people address the problem of food waste, right? Maybe we can start at the very top and talk about the monetary value of this market. You've got a great pitch deck slide number 3, if we can just jump in there.
Yep.
Scroll down. That's what every investor wants to see, is it spelt out in the money there. Can you tell us a little bit, and maybe you can describe to me, because some people aren't actually watching the video version of that. So just tell me sort of, you know, face to face, what this market is worth.
Yep. So we adopted a bottom-up approach. So we estimate a $9.24 billion market, and that's consisting of large hotels and buffet restaurants in APAC.
Right.
And the way,
where does that calculation come from?
Yep. So the way we arrived at that number, basically we looked at all the 4 and 5 star hotels in APAC that throw away at least 35 tons of food a month. And how we arrived at that figure, basically we just took 10% of all the number of hotels in APAC, and we get the number from booking.com. So there are about 200,000 hotels in APAC. We're taking a 10% of that, and we're saying that 10% are throwing away more than 35 tons.
Right.
And
so 20,000 are throwing away 35 tons.
Or more a month.
Or more.
Yeah, so we don't really want to focus on the smaller hotels. Our target really is the big hotels, the ones that throwing away at least 35 tons of food a month.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're also looking at buffet restaurants. So we estimate another 750,000 buffet restaurants in the APAC region.
Yeah.
We put those two numbers together and we multiply that number, so 100,000, multiply that by $12,000, which is the amount that we would charge them per year.
Right.
And we arrive at 9.24 billion.
So 12,000. So your market size of 9.2 billion is your potential revenues. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. So we use a bottom-up approach, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So you're saying it's not a 9.24 billion market. It's your potential revenues of a bigger market, right?
Yeah. So the thing is that, to be frank, like for our market, there is not much sort of information out there on like what hotels and buffet restaurants are spending on food waste reduction sort of solutions. So the way we sort of estimated the market was more of like just bottom up, right? The number of hotels available and
it's more honest. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay. So there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of waste. I mean, where do you get that figure of 35 tons from?
So that's a number we set arbitrarily.
Yeah.
Mostly because, again, we want to target the big boys because they are the ones that are going to recognize the value we bring to them. If we are working with a small hotel that's only maybe throwing away 3 to 5 tons a month, and maybe if we save them maybe 20-30%, they're not going to feel sort of like the savings compared to a hotel that's throwing away 50 tons a month.
Yeah.
So we're just going for the big boys.
And they're also chains as well. So you get in with one, you should be able to get in with all of them.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the problem. So obviously there's a lot of waste, right?
A lot of waste.
If we can just sort of flip back up to slide 2 on the pitch deck here, you sort of marked it out for us. One hotel, 900 tons.
A month.
Is that a month?
A month.
So there's one hotel, 900 tons a month?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the largest, of course. Yeah. And they have like a convention center. So 900 tons a month.
That's incredible.
I mean, I've used this pitch deck, and like I also give talks about the food waste problem. Yeah. And each time I share this figure, like I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that figure. Yeah. Like, how do you even visualize 900 tons of food?
Well, it's like 45 elephants. Or more, or 90 elephants. Right?
Yeah, I think it's way more than that. But
yeah, it must be. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe somebody can pull me up on the data there, but it's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
There's a lot of wastage. Why? I mean, because if it cost money, they would address it. So what's the problem?
Yeah, so we have identified, I would say, 3 main areas that food waste arises from. I think the first one, most of us can more or less identify with it. We call it overproduction from buffet service, basically. Yeah. So imagine, a 4 to 5 star hotel, they're running a buffet and they're charging, say, 120 Singapore dollars. Now, the expectation is that when I'm paying $100 for a buffet, there better be food on the buffet line. And it's always a challenge for the buffet restaurant because they have to ensure that at every single point in time in the buffet service, there needs to be enough food. So to play it safe, because they don't want consumers complaining, they tend to overproduce. And that leads to a lot of unnecessary waste and a lot of unnecessary costs to the business. The second area that a lot of food waste arises from is what we call spoiled inventory. So, the kitchen has a procurement cycle, and each time maybe like they procure X amount of, say, a certain ingredient. When the next cycle comes, they don't really check what's in the fridge because it's too time consuming. they just throw and they order. And because they also pride themselves in serving the freshest and best ingredients, a lot of waste there also. The third area is what we'll call from the preparation process. So imagine hotel procures 100 kg of Wagyu beef. It will come in maybe like 10 kg slabs where the chef will have to portion. And say on their menu, they're serving 250 gram Wagyu beef steak. So the chef will actually have to portion that 10 kg down to like 250 gram portions. Now, if those individual portions fall below a certain tolerance level, say maybe like 15 grams, it gets thrown away. Because you can't be serving a 220 gram steak when on the menu you're saying it's 250 grams.
Yep. Somebody's going to notice.
Yeah. So a lot of, I would say, subconscious sort of waste happens at that level also. So those three main areas, and those are the three main areas we track waste, and then we give them insights on how to reduce it.
Do you know that as a percentage of the complete amount of food? I mean, you talk about, for example, like, average maybe 35 up to 900, for example. What is that in the grand scheme of things in terms of the value of the food that they purchase on the inventory, or even the size, the volume of the food?
So I can't give you exact numbers because I think it varies from hotel to hotel. But what I can somewhat say is that most hotels, at least I know, they have like a KPI where their cost of goods has to be like maybe 30 to 35% of sales. So that's how much the ingredient is costing them. But of that 30 to 35%, probably maybe I would say, 30 to 40, 50% of it is waste.
Right, so a third of a third.
Yeah, something like that.
So almost 10%.
Yep.
Of the complete cost.
Potentially, yes.
Of the sale value or of the cost?
Of the sale value.
Sale value,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Just based on those assumptions.
Yeah, right. Yep. Obviously, a lot of assumptions and nothing that we're going to set in stone, but I just want to get a feel for how big the problem is. All right, so I've identified the problem, and a lot of it is endemic in the process and just the natural factor that you have human beings and a lot of fresh goods as well. So it's going to cause a lot of wastage. The solution thus far has been, you've mentioned some of it already. Maybe you can just explain to us what those solutions are. What is the most obvious solution to all this problem?
The most obvious solution would be a food digester machine. Essentially what this machine is, you can imagine like a huge machine that it takes in food waste and it converts it into fertilizer. Right. So that's one. The other one is it converts it into grey water. It's essentially a fancy way of saying like sewage waste.
Right.
So instead of calling the waste management company to take away the bags and bags of food waste, now they're disposing it through the sewage, which is cheaper. But that machine costs anywhere between 300,000 Singapore dollars to $500,000.
Right.
Singapore dollars.
Do they buy that, or is that something that they then send
buy?
Okay.
They buy.
So they have to have that on site.
Exactly.
And obviously that's going to be a large, smelly machine.
Yes.
Noisy.
So smell. Yep. Cost.
Somebody has to operate it.
Exactly.
They might get limbs lost in there,
Yeah, so really only the big boys can afford it. And here's the thing I've learned about hotels is that they don't like capex.
Yeah,
They don't like to acquire assets because that means they also have to maintain it.
Right, because they're a real estate play, effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah, so why spend on anything apart from bricks and mortar?
Yeah, so for some of the hotels we work with, they have food digester machines.
Yeah.
And when I have really honest conversations with them, they say things like, in a whole year, the machine is only in operations for 6 months.
Right.
And the other 6 months is, they have to get the approval for the maintenance, and it just takes a long time. It's just really not the best solution. Plus, it's not even tackling the root problem, which is inefficiency.
Right.
Overproduction, so on and so forth.
Symptoms rather than prevention. So that machine that sits in the hotel, that's one option. Does it, just in terms of the actual impact, so that produces the
fertilizer,
slurry or the fertilizer, the grey water, as you call it. Does that actually solve any sort of environmental problems as well? Or does that sort of just kick the can down the road?
Well, I mean, for the fertilizers, like you're basically upcycling. So basically, it's like a full cycle. So like waste, and then it goes to fertilizer, it goes to make more food, so on and so forth.
That's fine, but actually sticking it into the sewage as well, does that sort of cause an environmental problem?
I don't have the exact figures. I'm not an expert in that area, but I just know from the business point of view for the hotel,
right? Okay,
it's just lower sort of disposal costs.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so the machine. We've discussed the machine and with all its costs and potential benefits as well. What else?
So some hotels, they actually work with charities to redistribute surplus food to the needy. Now, here is where it gets a little bit more challenging because in Singapore, unlike some other countries, we don't have a Good Samaritan Act, which basically it's a law that protects the Good Samaritan for their goodwill. So, you know, in Singapore, we're super strict on hygiene, we're super strict on like food safety. So imagine if somebody receives the surplus food from a donor and they get food poisoning.
Yeah.
Now, hotels, they are fearful of this liability.
Right. So they would be liable.
I mean, yes, they would.
Because there is no Good Samaritan Act,
Exactly.
which in other countries sort of protect somebody who had the good intentions.
Exactly.
Right.
So only a few hotels do this.
Right.
Most hotels that I speak to, they don't even want to venture down there because they are fearful of the liability.
It would be, I mean, only take one case.
Exactly.
And you do not want a hotel to be associated with food poisoning.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is the same for pretty much every single food establishment in Singapore, be it bakery, fast casual restaurants, so on and so forth. They all have this fear of liability, which is a shame. I mean, like, we don't have that act.
Right.
I mean,
even if they were to introduce the act, I think any kind of food redistribution is hugely time and human being intensive as well.
Exactly.
And inefficient. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just said in terms of addressing the problem, you know, it takes a lot of hands to distribute food because you've got to separate the food. You've got to, you know, do it in time, for example. You know, if you're dealing with meat or any kind of dairy produce, it has to move fast.
Absolutely.
I mean, whether or not it's going to, you know, go off, but the point is it still needs to be fresh when people receive it, right?
Yep.
So there's that issue.
Yeah.
And then all the issue of actually sort of like packaging that and so on. That's another thing entirely. Okay. So you've talked about that. What's the third option?
The third option is us, prevention.
So tell us.
Yep. Here's the premise of our solution. We believe that whatever can be measured can be managed, controlled, and prevented. Our key focus is providing very granular data to the kitchens on what they're throwing away, when they're throwing away, and where this food waste is being generated.
Right.
And our hope is that by collecting this data over a period of time, we can provide them actionable insights on how to reduce it. Let me give you an example.
Please.
If we can tell a buffet restaurant that for the last 30 days, their top wasted item is curry chicken, and for every lunch service, on average, they're throwing away 10 kgs of curry chicken. That is what we'll call actionable insights, because they can use that data to better plan for future lunch services. So how we go about tracking the data is through our product. We call it Insight. It's a smart dustbin equipped with sensors that can...
All right, we're gonna go there. We'll get it on the pitch deck. You've got a good picture of it as well. Because before we talk about your product, I would have thought, well, I mean, if it really was something that I could derive a economic benefit from, I could hire somebody, an intern, sit there and just count all the chicken legs going out, or, you know, the weighing the curry. Surely I can do that, right?
Yeah, it's too manual. I mean, we have heard, I mean, I've spoken to some hotels and they do like a very occasional food waste audit,
right?
But they literally hire a consulting company and they charge them like, 5 figures.
Absolutely.
And literally they're standing there with a weighing scale, a manual weighing scale, recording the amount of waste. But it's a one-time sort of event. It's not.
It's a sample rather than ongoing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's costly, it's manual, it's time-consuming.
All right, let's have a look at yours then. So this is the machine that you have built.
Yes, we have built it.
So you've built a prototype. So tell us a little bit about this. So you've built a working model of this?
It's out in the market.
Yeah. So people have bought it already?
Yes.
So you're out there selling it?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So how much does it cost to produce one of those?
We're producing it in Singapore right now.
Yeah.
It's costing somewhere along the lines of $1,800 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is it made out of? Just out of curiosity, it's just a plastic bin.
So we don't actually build the bin.
Oh, okay.
We just built the lid that fits on top of the bin.
So that sort of hood on it.
Exactly.
I see.
Yep. So the reason why we did it that way was because 99% of all F&Bs in Singapore use that green bin.
Right.
It's 120
It's a standard,
liter bin.
is it?
It's a standard.
Okay.
So we figured we don't need to buy the bin. We just built something that fits on top of it, and we can be sure that every...
Exactly. And you don't want to be selling bins.
Yeah.
Right? You're not in that business.
Yeah.
Okay, so you build the hood. Okay, tell us a little bit about that hood.
Yep.
What's in it?
It's equipped with a bunch of sensors.
Yeah.
The main ones will be firstly a weight sensor.
Yeah.
So that anything that gets thrown into it, so imagine like a platform, it's like a platform with a weighing scale. Anything that gets thrown on top of it, we're able to capture the weight.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we also install a camera. So it's like angled at a position where it's overlooking this platform.
Yeah.
So that anything that gets thrown into it, we are able to capture an image of it.
Because
we're using image recognition.
Right.
So that we're able to identify whatever has been thrown away at a very granular level.
And how accurate is that? Because can it distinguish between a chicken leg and a banana, for example?
100%.
Right.
So we've been able to achieve high 80s to low 90s in our accuracy.
Yeah.
And what's pretty cool is that we're able to differentiate, for example, apple shavings and like apple, or even like cut apples and the whole apple.
Right.
And that's really important for us simply because for the kitchen, they're actually very interested in, not only are they like say wasting apple, they're interested in what apple waste is this? Is this spoiled inventory apple? It would look like a whole apple.
Yeah.
Or is it apple waste from the prep station?
Yeah.
That maybe it's like chopped up or like shavings.
Yeah.
Because that gives them information as to which part of the process in their whole sort of supply chain is the waste being generated from, and they can take action on that.
Right. So you said 80 to 90% accuracy?
High 80s to low 90s.
Okay. So let's take 90.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So even if it's 90%, there's this area of 10%.
Sure.
What happens there? Because do people have to go back and manually do it, or you just put other in your analysis? Do they have to go back and say, let's have a look at that picture there. That looks like some rice, or it might be pasta. I don't know. What happens in those situations?
So what we've done is that we've built a way where when our AI is not the most confident of its output, we set a threshold, a confidence level. Basically, if it falls below that, it gets routed to a part of our system where a human intervenes.
Right.
So pretty much on a daily basis, I'm logging into our system and looking at a bunch of images, anywhere between, right now it's not that bad, it's like maybe 5 to 15 images, and I'm manually tagging it. Yeah, so that sort of ensures that, our AI learns and it's constantly improving.
Right, so I would ask you, and any investor would want to know, how scalable is that? What happens when you've got 10,000 images coming in, you have to sit and...
That's a good question. So we foresee that this process would over time be, I wouldn't say eradicated, but kept to a minimum. Why? Because the game of image recognition is in the training data. The more data we have, the smarter our AI will become. So when I mentioned previously about 90%, we're going to get to 95, 96, 97%. It's not a question of if. It's more a question of when.
Right.
Because the more images we get, when we scale across Singapore, ASEAN, APAC, we're going to get more images of different cuisines. Our AI is going to get smarter and it's going to be more accurate.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be 100%, does it, to be a success?
I think honestly,
there's even if they say there's unidentifiable 5%, it's fine.
Yeah.
You've got the main picture here.
Exactly. Right? So like for any given buffet service, when we're collecting the data, we get anywhere between like maybe 50 to 60 different throws.
Right.
This is not necessarily dishes, because maybe for one dish, they're throwing it in 2 throws. So maybe for every 50 to 60 dishes, do the math. Maybe like you're getting like what, 1 wrong? Maybe. It's not that bad. I think it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Okay. So you have image recognition built in there. You have the hood, which is the physical equipment which they have to buy. The model is they buy the hood and then subscribe to a service. How does it work?
So we are hardware as a service. So similar to like a SaaS model, we don't sell the hood to them. Again, going back to how they don't like to acquire assets, they rather this be a OPEX rather than CAPEX. So we just do a installation fee plus a subscription fee. Right. And they love this model because that means we take care of the machine, we maintain it, and if they don't want it anymore, they just cancel. Yeah. But so far we haven't had anyone cancel on us. They love us. So yeah.
Okay. This is the challenge with the maintenance of the machine, because if you're throwing a lot of food waste in there, I imagine things are going to get bunged up, things are going to get, fall apart. So what happens then? You have engineers that go out and service this regularly, or what?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we designed the product, we kept all of these points in mind. Firstly, the product has to be robust because it's a quick kitchen equipment. In the kitchen, it's going to be busy. People are going to be knocking into it and all. So we made sure in the design process, we are making the product to last. It's robust. Secondly, it must be waterproof because we're in a wet environment. And not to mention, when they have to clean the product, they will have to obviously use water to clean it. So it has to be waterproof. Water can't get into the electronics and to mess everything up. So yeah, we do regular maintenance, but the maintenance is mostly right now because like we just want to make sure that our reliability is up there. We don't want the clients to be calling us, yeah. So we are going down pretty much on a monthly basis for now, just making sure that things are okay. And so far we haven't really faced a lot of problems with our latest version. In the past, earlier prototypes, yeah, of course we face problems. It's to be expected. It's a hardware product, but it's a prototype. But now we've gotten to a point where we're confident with the reliability and we're basically ready to scale.
Good. That brings me to your journey. So where we are in the story of Good for Food, how far you've come and what happens next. You've got a slide, if we can jump into the pitch deck on slide 18, we zip towards the end. And by the way, I mean, you've got some great slides in there.
Thank you.
You've gone into real depth as well. We don't have time to go through them all. Look at slide 18. Before we get to the team slide, if we just bump one up, if we may, Barrett, that one there. Not that one, sorry. Down one. We're going to the team. There we are. Let's do the team first. Why not? Because I want to know who's involved. Tell us a little bit about who your team are, when they joined you in that journey, and then talk about where you are in your fundraising. And bear in mind, we're talking now March 2019. So if somebody's listening to this 6 months on, things have changed, right? So everything is time specific. So even with the team, in your journey, you started the founder, right? Rayner Loi. Then you obviously recruited, poached your co-founder.
Yep.
Who else have you got in the team?
Yep. So we also have Adro Tan, who's our lead product engineer.
Yep.
We got him mostly because we needed help in the hardware aspect. I mean, at the end of the day, we are an IoT company, which means we have both hardware and software. My co-founder, Keshav, he has good experience in both. But in terms of hardware, we needed an extra pair of hands. We needed an extra mind to think about the design. So Adro has been great for us. His main role is to liaise with manufacturers, continue to sort of innovate and make design changes to our existing product. And of course, he also handles all of the maintenance that we have today.
Okay. So you three are the core team at the moment.
We are the
You're
core
the core
team.
Full-time team. I know you've got a few people who work for you on project basis, maybe.
Yep.
And you're also hiring, or?
Yeah, we're hiring.
You are hiring.
We are hiring,
Good.
yes.
So tell us a little bit about your hiring needs at the moment.
Yep. So we're looking, I would say, the hiring for us, I think, and getting these two people is a key success ingredient for us, I feel.
Yeah, the two that are... So if somebody can't see this on the pitch deck, tell me a little bit about who those people are.
Yep. So firstly, we're looking for a full-stack developer. Yeah. I think we need more support on the back end to really sort of support, the momentum we're getting. And as we're scaling to more restaurants and more hotels, I should say, we need someone to come in to help us with that. Not to mention also, I think there's more work to be done on our data visualization, because as much as we can collect the data through our hardware product, we still need to make those beautiful reports for our clients so that they can, see both at a macro and micro level what sort of ways
they have to action it.
Exactly. So we need a full stack developer to help us with those things. The second key hire will be what we'll call a computer vision engineer. So we think that computer vision is the game we're playing, because when we are getting high levels of accuracy, this means that the data is not only accurate, but it's seamless, right, for our clients, because they just need to they don't need to do any manual input. And that also reduces the strain on our team where we need to manually input. So building our image recognition is also really key for us, and also especially because this is our differentiator compared to our competitors. So we want to continue to build on the head start I feel that we already have, and bringing on a computer vision engineer will only help us to do so.
So if you build up a competence of visual recognition based on food items, is that expandable into other areas? I mean, everybody eats food, obviously, but it may not just be food, because it's obviously quite vague and amorphous objects that you might be dealing with, right? So I know you're focused completely on the hotels at the moment. Does it lend itself long-term naturally to other applications?
So the first thing I want to say is that our image recognition technology is actually pretty unique. So there are image recognition models out there on just generic food. So for example, your very nicely plated chicken rice or your very nicely plated cake. But what we're doing is something very different, because chicken rice waste looks very different from nicely plated chicken rice. And cake waste is very different from a nicely plated cake. That makes it two things, right? Number one, it's not easy to do what we're doing for image recognition, which makes it harder for competitors to sort of, chase us and compete in this field. But secondly, also, we can be the guys for food waste image recognition in the future. Because going back to what I shared previously, when we're getting like hundreds of thousands and millions of food waste images, we be the go-to for our food waste image recognition model, which we think in the future that is something that's worth licensing out for.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the potential opportunities. Obviously, you've thought through this in depth a lot more than I have. I'm just new to the game. But, obviously hotels is a great place to start because it's a lot more controllable. You're dealing with chains as well.
Yep.
There's also caterers who are huge businesses. And for them, this impacts the bottom line straight off the bat. So,
absolutely.
A caterer who could have this kind of technology and services, not just hotels, but also offices or government departments or schools.
Absolutely.
The impact of that is huge long term.
Yeah. And another interesting one I want to bring up is airlines.
Yeah.
So for airlines, what's really interesting is that it's more than just the food cost that they're saving on.
Yeah.
But imagine this, if they can bring on, say, 50 to 60 meals less than they would otherwise, that is maybe 1 to 2 trolleys. That is less cargo they need to bring on the plane.
Absolutely.
Which means less fuel.
Yeah.
Compounded by the number of flights they do every week, every month, every year, the business case is clear for them. It's more than just the food cost. It's also saving on fuel.
Yeah, a good PR as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially in an industry which is often targeted for its impact on the environment. Good. Airlines, great. I'm meeting an airline guy this week.
Yeah?
Stay tuned.
Awesome.
Okay. Let's talk about where you are in your fundraising. I won't put the pitch deck up because this is also, I want to hear it from you directly, and all the details are in there anyway, but it's liable to change as well. So anybody that's listening to this, it may be, you've already closed a round, you're opening a new round and so on. March 2019, what are you raising? Where are you in your fundraising, and what are you going to use it for?
Yep. So we're raising a seed round, $500,000 USD. So we have about, I would say, slightly more than half of that already committed.
Yeah.
We have a lead investor, and we have like a bunch of business angels that have already committed. So we're looking for the remaining half. We're looking to close within the next 4 to 6 weeks. And I think what we're really looking for is smart money. I think for us, we have certain sort of areas where we want, our investors to help us in. For example, in our business, B2B, I could spend a lot of time going through, the ladder to get to the decision maker, or I could get one of my investors to pick up the phone and get me a meeting with, say, the CEO of one of the world's largest hotel chains. That would just dramatically shorten my sales cycle. So, and that's the reason why we're pretty excited to be working with the lead VC that's come on board with us, because they have extensive network in the APAC region and access to pretty much all of the large hotel chains. Some of our other business angels, they bring value in terms of they bring value in terms of sales, helping us build a sales team. Because a lot of what I'm doing right now is just myself, like me selling. I need to basically multiply myself, right? Bring on a sales team, build sort of a sales process, repeatable and proven. So he can help us with that. I think right now what we're looking for is C-level sort of executives, angels who have deep understanding of how to scale overseas. I think I don't want to be ignorant and think that, going to, say, for example, another country will be as easy as like what we're doing in Singapore. I think there are a lot of nuances and a lot of challenges. And the thing is, I don't know what I don't know. So I'm very intentional about making sure that I bring people either in the form of mentors or investors to sort of cover my weaknesses. So someone who has experience scaling overseas, that will be really crucial for us. And I think another department would be marketing. So we haven't spent a lot of time creating our socials, our website. What are those like customer testimony videos going to look like? What the white paper is going to look like? We haven't spent a lot of time on that, nor do we really have the expertise. So I think someone who has maybe a little bit of a marketing and PR sort of background, like that would be amazing for us.
Excellent. Well, you heard it here. So just roughly 200 to 250,000 left in the round.
In the round, yes.
You've already got some commitments. You've got a lead investor. Is that the VC who's the lead investor?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, you also have other angels who have made interesting signs, or they're ready to commit.
They're ready to commit. Committed.
They're committed.
Committed.
All right. So, and you've got about half the round to go, and you're looking for people with contacts or experience in sales, business development, marketing.
Yep.
And also scalable experience in the region. The region being?
APAC.
APAC.
Yep.
So whoever has that sort of cross-border experience,
yep,
particularly if it was relevant to any of the industries you're talking about, hotels, travel, hospitality, and so on, would love to talk to these people, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Rayner Loi, really enjoyed hearing your story and what you're trying to do with Good for Food. And I think, you know, you are an impressive individual.
Thank you.
I think that, you know, even in the first couple of minutes, your backstory to how you got here, you know, if you put Good for Food aside for a little bit, even talking about, you know, what you know, how you approached your faculty about doing an internship in your own company. It says a lot about you. It speaks volume about you and what you're trying to do, because I think the problem you're trying to address is a huge problem, and fundamentally it's a behavioral problem. You know, it's caused by bad habits within industries that have been doing this for many, many years. So it takes someone with a lot of energy and a lot of positivity, because you're going to deal a lot of knockbacks. You know, this is obvious that this needs to be done, but at the end of the day, a lot of people are just lazy and things just kind of work as they are. But you need to create change, right? So it takes that kind of personality to get it done. And it's great with your current round that you've got a lot of commitment already. I'm sure investors listening to this, watching this, and who will meet you as well, will be very interested in having a chat with you. So thanks a lot for coming and sharing that with us today. Wishing you all the best. What is the best way for people to reach out for you? What's your preferred channel of contact?
Yeah, I mean, could reach me via my email. So that's raynerloi@goodforfood.sg. It's RAY.
We'll put it all in the show notes.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes.
Don't worry.
Cool.
We'll put it all in there. Okay. And tell them that you watch this or listen to this, and reach out, and all those check boxes above, all those different sort of requirements that you're looking for. Anybody in that space, please just reach out and, you know, make first contact with Rayner.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Excellent. Thanks a lot for coming today, and such a great pitch deck as well, and, you know, a great story to your journey. Let's see how it goes. And I'd love to have you back on the show in 6 months, 12 months, and see where you are in the journey. It'd be fantastic to see the progress.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I'll be humbled.
Excellent. Rayner Loi, everybody.